We start as one on Illuminate front to keep Meridian at bay. With every step this legend told of how we fought on that fateful day. Our mission was to keep it still, to thwart the darkness to our will. Not been able to avoid. Now fate will decide who lives, who dies under the eye of the violet void. Fall of the angels, venture skies. We should unite, but this is not enough. Split us all like the radio roam free. All valiant efforts, now just a pity wrath. As darkness spreads where light used to be. We couldn't stop the voids and fans. Now someone's home.
Evening's freedoms, mourners, and marauders. Tonight's audible treat was Angel's Venture Falls by Dead Net Order, and I don't think this song's name requires any further explanation. We know what happened, we know what the squids did. We won't forget, and we won't forgive. However, let's explore a little further into what exactly happened to Angel's Venture this morning. The Meridian Singularity didn't need to make a direct hit in order to cause damage because of something called a rush limit, which is defined as the distance at which a celestial body's tidal forces are strong enough to break apart another celestial body. It's sort of like when you try to pick up a rotten piece of wood or something. I grew up on a farm, it sucked, and this is the best metaphor I've got, shut up. Sometimes, when you pull as hard as you can, you just rip off little pieces instead of picking up the whole thing. This happened on a planet-wide scale, so a certain amount of Angel's Venture was torn free by Meridia's near passing, while a certain other percentage of mass remained behind as asteroids left in space. It was an extremely violent end for a very fair planet. But let's delve a little deeper into this matter on a political level. Most notably how this number is wrong. Call it the Ministry of Truth being lazy, covering their butts, or whatever you like. But what they ended up doing is counting how many A-class top priority civilians they evacuated, compared that to the most recent census taken of the planet, and just subtracted the remainder from that. Now, I think everyone here knows that my Seraphim, the Wolf Divers, the FDS, the Spartans, and heck, even those straight jacket-wearing Legion Divers evacuated way more civilians than that. But the MOT can't exactly come up and say that without giving credit where credit is due, which would make the Angelic Rebellion look awesome, because we are. By our count, the death tally for the Angel's Venture catastrophe was somewhere in the low hundreds, and that is the real truth. In fact, Jarl Quicksilver contacted me earlier because now there's a different problem. The Nidavellir complex is badly overcrowded, which is something I did see coming. It's why I didn't fight Chief too much when he wanted to take his half of the flock to Sulfura. I mean, we're talking about taking the population of a planet once nicknamed the Jewel of Liberty in the East and plonking them down on what might be generously considered a dusty moon that has a few shrubs, meteor showers, and some days you might get lucky and have a breathable atmosphere when you go outside. The Sigma Paradise this ain't. To that end, I've made a few calls, made a few concessions, and cashed in on some favors to get these people up and moving again toward Ursica 9 in the Borgus sector. A friend who wishes to remain anonymous extended the offer to me earlier today, and even though Darius too had the local troublemaking kids shooting on the screen door only a few hours ago, literally 2 jumps over, I had been given assurances that the survivors of Angel's Venture will be kept safe. Now they just need to cross the new astrological landmark being called the Meridian Void between Fenrir 3 and Turing. That's an awful lot of nothing out there. It makes me feel dreadfully uncomfortable. In other news from the community, the 14th Ursine Company collectively renewed their oaths of loyalty to Super Earth and its governing body earlier today, So we in the Angelic Rebellion might end up needing to fight hell-diving bears at some point. To think all of this was caused because of a typo. Their founder was sure that the Super Earth Constitution said that he had the right to keep and arm bears. Likewise, the Super Earth Intelligence Agency sided with the Ministry of Truth and are working on trying to rip out my self-replicating malware from their datanet so I couldn't peek at major orders or new tech developments anymore if they succeed. They have also pledged to conduct counterintelligence operation against my rebellion, so we're gonna need to be extra cautious. I happen to know these guys, and this is a big step up from the Ministry's usual IT specialists who were befuddled by the likes of Super Spacebook. As far as the Bank of Prosperity itself, they're still weighing in on the decision and discussing amongst themselves. I have heard that the Ministry is growing impatient for their answer, and really guys, if losing your SE trade license is too painful, don't make that sacrifice for me. You have to take care of yourselves first, and if you don't want to get swept up in all of this drama, I completely understand. Do what you gotta do. The Venture Company has begun analyzing the remains of Angel's Venture for any survivors or useful, rare, not Earth elements? I don't know what to call this. Considering the planetary crust as well as the atmosphere was ripped off by the passing singularity, exposing the molten core, and then breaking that molten core into multiple pieces, the odds of survivors are... I just hope they didn't suffer. On a side note, the Deep Rock Galactic Mining Company has expressed interest in the mining rights for the husk of Angel's Venture. When reminded about the odds of a terminid infestation happening at some point, BRG just laughed and said, "Don't worry, we've got people for that." Rock and stone indeed, my subterranean slaughter specialist. Tell Mission Control that I said hello, and that he still owes me 40 super credits from that poker game last Saturday. Now, in news from the Galactic Sphere, the Darius 2 infestation that I alluded to prior was cleaned up nice and proper thanks to timely assistance from the DSS. Boogie got his nose broken good. Horde within the Regal sector reports similarly good news with squids thrashed, monoliths destroyed, and dark matter harvesting operations canceled. Keid within the Akira sector looks to follow suit during the night. Which is good because Meridia is still hungry after devouring one planet and is looking at Moradesh as its next meal. Fortunately, Moradesh is a much more sparsely populated planet with a significantly more reasonable government, so we should not have a repeat of Angel's Venture on that planet should the worst befall us. Now, the Freedom Alliance and Independence League are celebrating the recently completed Operation Cataclysm as a great victory, and from the context of organization, cooperation, and camaraderie, it most certainly was. But as much as I dislike disagreeing with the Silver Command, I'm going to have to say that strategically it was a massive failure. I mean, come on, over 50,000 Helldivers came together to fight against our sworn enemies in a way not seen since the early days of Malevelon Creek, with nearly 60 million Voteless slain and 20,000 monoliths destroyed, and it did nothing. The Illuminate still completed their evil plan, and now they know that they can reliably move their black hole weapon around at enormous speeds to destroy planets with no risk of their own. Their next move will be faster. They're confident now, and this is not a good thing. We just ripped the kitchen sink out of our wall, threw it at the Illuminate, and Squidward just yawned and called us mid. In fact, the situation may be worse than we first realized because of the studies Mercy and I have been conducting on Overseers. After blasting the chest plating off of one and sending him off to meet Cthulhu, I noticed earlier today that said Overseer was already nursing laser burn wounds consistent with a Super Earth double sickle. So I brought it back to the Bringer of Mercy for additional analysis. With full biohazard containment measures, of course, I know full well that Illuminate are dangerous even when dead. But therein lies the trick of it. This Overseer had been dead already for an extremely long time. Its flesh was completely necrotic and falling off the bone. Its armor was pretty much all that was still holding it together, even when it was fighting on the battlefield at full strength. I think Overseers are Illuminate Voteless, and my working theory is that the Order doesn't just abduct the living with these raids, but also the dead. Human corpses can be turned into Voteless easily enough, but what if the Illuminate are tending to the bodies of their own in the same way? What if we go through all of the struggle fighting them, and each time the Illuminate pull out, they dust the bodies off, recharge the batteries to revive them, wire them into a first shoot of combat armor, and send them back into battle? We, each of us, could have killed the same Overseer dozens of times by now, which means that unless we completely destroy the body beyond any measure of usefulness, it is impossible to bleed the Illuminate of manpower. This means that our entire approach of battlefield attrition isn't going to work. And destroying their warp ships doesn't seem to be working either, since there are seemingly no limit to these saucer craft that can be deployed, and the Illuminate are not shy about just throwing them away. Our lack of knowledge regarding the squids and their way of warfighting is crippling us. And considering that Meridia is already moving on towards its next meal, we are rapidly running out of time to figure this out. That's been Liberty's Latest with me, ponderatheradioangel. I don't really know what to do, Helldivers. Normally, I am in favor of explosions, gunfire, and giving the enemies of democracy a shallow grave at the edge of town. But Squidward came into this fight knowing all of our moves and tactics. He's done his homework, and we're the ones wearing the dunce cap. I'm not normally one to admit defeat, but I'm open to suggestions here. For liberty, for freedom, for democracy, and for Super Earth.